Maker Showcase. This is our quarterly event where the community come together and present our creative process, because as individual, we all approach problems differently. We all built and we have different tool set in our toolkits, and it's that process of how we take the journey to the final creations is valuable for the community, right? So we're here to share that, and we have three presentations ready for you today. And after those three presentations, we'll have an open mic session. There's no registration required. You can just jump on, talk about anything that you want to share with the community for a couple of minutes. And afterwards, definitely stick around. This is equally, if not more important, is to engage and ask those deeper conversations, deeper questions, and who knows, maybe some meaningful conversation and relationship can start. Today we have a special person we'd like to introduce, is our new executive director, Galen Nixon. He's going to say a few words for us.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the microphone and thanks for the introduction. It's great to be here. I started on Monday and I'm still just learning so much, so fast. If you tell me your name today, I'll forget it tomorrow. Tell me 2 or 3 times. I'm terrible with names, I'm sorry, but I will get to know all of you. I'm looking forward to working with you. This is fantastic that you're doing this today, so I can get to meet so many people. So thank you for having me, and enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Galen. All right, we'll dive right into it. Our first presenter is Scott with his low polygon animal creations. Scott, take it away, please.
Testing, testing. All right, you can hear me. Well done. Thanks, Alex. Thanks. All right, thanks everybody for having me here today. I'm here to present low poly metal sculptures the quick and easy way. Except there's nothing quick and easy about anything that I've done here. So I'll just tell you how I did what I did. A little bit about me to start with. I've been an Asmbly member since 2023. I moved to Austin in 2006, and by day I'm an engineer, but I am a software engineer, and that's going to become apparent throughout this presentation at different parts. So where to start? It all started with this dinosaur that I built in my front yard. I've given a presentation about this before where I had a whole series of slides about why one would make a metal dinosaur. I don't think this audience actually needs that very much, but suffice to say, it was for this lovely lady, my wife Jacqueline. We've been married 10 years in April, and we can call it a wedding present. It's a much longer story than that, but we'll just leave it at that for now. So low poly, what is that? Why did I do it this way? Quick introduction, it's an aesthetic that's borrowed mostly from 3D video games from like the 90s and on. And it's a style of art where you're making it out of visible flat shapes. What low poly is or isn't kind of changes over time. This gorilla would be considered low poly now. 20 years ago, that would have been state of the art, just blowing people's minds. I thought this would be a more forgiving way for somebody who'd never done metal sculpture before and was just learning to weld. I don't know if that turned out to be the case, but time will tell. So how did I go about this first dinosaur? It starts out with a drawing. I'm no Picasso, but I can doodle. So I did some doodles to start with. Ended up with this guy, and I must say, it came out pretty close to what I envisioned there. So I was pretty proud of myself there. Once you got that drawing, I traced it. You can trace it in the vector program of your choice. I have Adobe Illustrator, so just use that pen tool, trace out the shape that you want to cut out. And then for me, I used a 3D modeling program to build this because again, I'm not a sculptor by trade. So Blender 3D, it's free, you can download it. You pull it in there and use the all-important extrude tool, which takes 2D shapes, makes them to 3D shapes. And then from there, you kind of just push and pull and get it into shape. Over time, like with this rabbit, as we'll see later, I did all of the tracing kind of in the 3D program, and I kind of skipped the Illustrator part, but same kind of concept. Trace, extrude, start pulling stuff out. And then you want to get that 3D model back into 2D pieces that you can cut out and weld together. So that's the flattening part. In Blender 3D, there is a very handy built-in add-on called Paper Model, which creates these paper models for you. So I did that, made some labels, made some maps so I knew what went where. And then I actually made a paper model from it, which was super fun and kind of a confidence booster because I saw that this thing would at least stand on its own 2 feet, even without a tail. So from there, that gave me the confidence to move on, scale the plans up to life size, and get them. Oh, there's my little cat. So that's just she was a tiny cat, but still, it's big plans. To get these printed, I went to a place in town called Burke's. It's very important for the technique that I'm about to show you that you have to use toner for this. And Burke's Digital Imaging in downtown is one of the only places left that will do large format laser printing and toner. This won't work if you use an inkjet. Basically what you do is you lay those plans face down on the metal that you're going to use. This is all recycled scrap metal, which also will come into play later. Very thin stuff, but you lay it face down, you rub it with acetone, take a cotton ball, rub acetone that you can get from Walgreens or something all over it, and then you peel it off, and that will transfer the toner onto the metal. And from there, it's very easy to cut it out with power shears. I think we probably have some at Asmbly. I had some. This was before I even knew Asmbly existed, so I got to buy all sorts of new power tools that I probably now don't need. For some of it, I was able, instead of welding every single piece together, I could score it with a Dremel and fold it together. This is the lower jaw. That saved me some time and misery, but mostly it's welded. This was my first experience with welding. I'd taken a couple of classes with a man named Brady Foster, who has a shop called the Austin Metal Shop Studio. He taught me to weld, but he taught me to weld real metal, not this stuff, which is recycled roofing tin and construction stuff. Blew a lot of holes in it, but eventually got to a place where I got the settings dialed in, where I could tack this stuff together, kind of bend it into place. I did it in pieces, so I had to then fasten. Oh, there's me walking on it. I had to fasten the pieces together, built a lot of kind of custom brackets out of straight bar and screwed pieces together. Spray paint hides a lot of sins, maybe all of our sins. So liberal use of spray paint erased a lot of those holes, a lot of the grime and rust from the construction metal that I was using. And then eventually, with an extra pair of hands, we were able to put this thing together and have it in the front yard and live happily ever after. Except that, as I pointed out, I am a software engineer and not a structural engineer. So I assumed that because this thing weighed about what I weigh, and I don't blow over in the wind, this thing would be fine with a couple of sandbags in its legs. Which leads us to this. Yeah, very sad. A little mini tornado came through town and just blew this thing down. I had made these roses earlier, and they became kind of funereal display of what happened there. But onward and upward, right? So my wife looked at me and she said, well, that was just a prototype anyway, right? So Dyno 2.0. My goal for this was mainly not blowing over, but I figured I'd learned some things and I could make some improvements. And this is where we ended up with. This is welded rod, like steel bar, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 3/8 inch bar, welded to heavy steel plates and acrylic plexiglass, and it's not going anywhere. So a couple of new techniques that I used in the production of this. First, some inspiration that I got, and the main one was this woman, Ilya Tinker, who used to work out of a place called Highland Collective here in Austin. She's an artist. She's actually moved on to be the chief fabricator for Meow Wolf in Santa Fe. Pretty big deal. But she had made some low poly sculptures out of bar. This one's a scale model of Machu Picchu. It's still at Highland Collective now, I think. And a couple of things I learned from how she did stuff is, first, she did cardboard models, full-scale cardboard models of her work. And I asked a friend of hers, like, well, how does she take the welded rod and hold it in place while she's welding things together? And she said, well, she has people helping her. And I said, oh, other people, what a concept. It's amazing. So keep that in mind when you're working on things. But I took that to heart. I made my own cardboard model, this time with toes. This lived in our house for far longer than my wife probably would have appreciated, but eventually got that all set up. Taped all that steel on there and welded it together. You might ask, how do you weld metal onto cardboard without setting fires? And the answer is you do not. you set a lot of fires. So you have your handy squeeze bottle nearby. It burns pretty slow, so it's easy to put out. Now, the problem with this, though, is because it's cardboard, and especially because it's cardboard that I rescued from dumpsters and other places, because I don't want to buy new cardboard, that felt wrong, it does tend to warp over time and when you're welding heavy bars onto it. So when it came time to actually cut this acrylic, well, first of all, I thought I was going to be doing this by hand until I discovered Asmbly, so thank you all again for existing, because I'd still be here today doing it. The laser cutter makes quick work of it, but when it came time to actually cut these pieces, I did so and they didn't fit. They had skewed and they just didn't fit in the spaces. So what I ended up having to do in this case is make a 3D model of the sculpture that I built using something called Polycam. You walk all around it and you take a picture. This is actually a model, it looks real, but this is in Blender. These are garbage bags that I put in for some background. And then I had to trace those pieces back out. Which was pretty tedious, but I did it. I did it out of cardboard again just to get the fit right, and then was able to get the pieces shaped correctly so they would fit in the holes and get that final acrylic in there. I drilled holes, I laser cut holes in it as well, each piece, and then they're tied on. This is fishing line, which was the original idea, but that was not the greatest. What I ended up using for it is garden wire, green garden wire, which blends in perfectly from a few feet away. You can't even see it. It looks really flush in there. And then assembled that together with help. That's my neighbor Carl, putting some toes in. Thank you, Carl. And then the head and a couple other pieces this is strapped on with screws with the rods that go in. The tail is just zip tied on and works great. So that took less time than the original dinosaur because I was a little more confident what I was doing. And from there, I had this idea of putting a sculpture in front of not just my house, but everybody's house on the block. So I secured the agreement of one neighbor at least, and I said, how about a rabbit? Because we'd gotten this influx of rabbits in the neighborhood all of a sudden, so I had lots of inspiration. This rabbit is actually based directly off of a video I took of a rabbit in our front yard prancing around. So it's a neighborhood bunny. I wanted to make it higher fidelity, which in some ways turned out to be a mistake because it's been a real bear to do. But I wanted to present myself a new challenge. I'd gotten a little bit better at welding, and I figured out a new technique I wanted to use, which was the scaffold technique, because I figured, can I make it perfect? Which we should all know is the enemy of any good project. I was convinced that I could do this in a way that would overcome the problems that I'd had with that cardboard where it was warping and shifting, so that I could do it and then cut out those pieces from acrylic and they would just fit right in and it would be perfect. Silly. So the idea in general was to make a harder model, full-scale model, out of hard materials and then just weld onto that. And then take out the harder material and replace it with acrylic. So I did a little proof of concept. I got some show and tell pieces here. This is kind of the process. So here is a very simple model. I was making like a Christmas ornament. And this time my software engineering came into handy because I made a program that runs in Blender that would take the angles and figure out where the rods should go, and some clips to clip these pieces together, and then I could cut out those pieces on the laser cutter and those clips and fasten them together into something like this. So once you take this, you can then cut the rods, stick them right in these grooves, and weld it all together, and you get something that you can then take those same pieces, like these hardboard pieces. I just cut the same pieces out of acrylic, glue them in there, and they should press fit. That was the idea. Which on a small scale worked great with very defined, easy shapes. And I had to put a light in it, because why not? So the idea, again, is cutting the hardboard panels and clips. So in Blender, and I'm sure many 3D programs, you can get it to label these things for you. So this is piece number 3. There's edge number 27. So here they are. Here's piece number 3. Here's clip number 27, and it just goes right in there. and then the other piece would go on and be the right angle, perfect angle. I started out using wood glue for this, which was interminable, just so slow. And then somebody here at Asmbly, actually in the laser room, turned me on to UV resin for this. UV resin you're usually using to make, say, jewelry or something, and you've got to cure it for a long time. But if you just put a little dab on there and hit it with a UV flashlight for 30 seconds, it's good enough for government work, as they say. Like it's not going to move, and that's how like some parts of this are. And I used that extensively through the project there. There's the stuff that I just showed you. Many pieces, many clips. So probably to call this low poly, maybe it's medium poly, but it was a lot of work. But I did get it, and it started to look really good. I mean, it looks exactly like the model, right? Nowhere to go but up. Cutting the rods turned out to be quite an ordeal as well. I really wanted to get as close to the right size and length and angle as possible, so I made all these custom jigs, which was kind of insane, using like a hand bandsaw. This didn't actually work, but fail and try again. It worked for the purpose, but it also destroyed the jig while I was using it. I ended up doing something kind of similar where I would use the same pieces and put 2 screws and just feed the rod through both sides and then just mark it with a paint pen and cut them out with an angle grinder, but still super tedious. Savannah Harvey, who is one of our metal stewards here, had a great idea that I did not take and should have, which was just cut a bunch of different sizes and they'll be close enough. Because what I ended up doing after I taped all these on with this handy aluminum tape, which can hold a charge, so you can weld over it. Sometimes it explodes, but it's not explodes, but it pops. You can see an example here of one that I had some welding on. It does sizzle a bit, but it stays. But you'll notice maybe that there's spaces in between all of these. And even if I welded the corners, you'd have to kind of fill in a lot of weld there. Or you can stick bearing balls in there, which is what I did. So if you order carbon steel bearing balls, they're pretty cheap. You can get them in all sorts of sizes. And then you have these vertices all filled in, and you can weld over them. And you might see some lumpiness on here. That's what grinding is for. But it worked out really well. Much grinding. But it started to look pretty good, and you can see like the piece is still the piece. Like it looks like if I knock this out and replace it with acrylic, it would just slot right in. And for some of these bigger pieces, that is definitely the case. But for, say, like the face and the ears and the smaller stuff, like this hardboard, which is hard but also cheap, given enough weight and time and these tiny little clips, it still flexes and bends to the point where the shapes aren't just going to press fit in there anymore. So that was a little bit of a disappointment. But then I realized you can just put them in from the back, and which is what you're seeing here, which up close maybe you can tell, but as someone else at Asmbly told me once, something can be good from afar, but far from good. So from a few feet away, I think it looks perfect. So I'm gonna paint the rest of this gold and keep fitting out these pieces. I wish I'd had it finished for you all, but as somebody else said, it's kind of good to show work in progress too. So I feel like I'm on the home stretch of it. And this is what it's gonna look like in the end. It's got that marble in most of it and some kind of frosted purple for the tail and the ears. Kind of TBD on how this is going to be mounted, but the idea is for it to be leaping out of the tree pit. This is actually my neighbor's tree and the pit that it's kind of in, and we want it to be coming out of there. So that's the goal, and to be continued to finish it out. And that's all I got. I don't know how long that was, but.
Question here. Please speak into the mic.
So how long did it take you, like, to build these actually, or a time frame? Weeks, months?
Like labor hours, I don't know. I mean, probably like 100 hours, but over like 2 years because it's when you get a chance to work on it, right? I would go in surges. somehow mysteriously, when I was alone for a weekend and my wife was traveling for work or something, all sorts of stuff would get done. But it was it was mostly just nights and weekends, pulling it in for a couple of years.
At some point, you just start going by presidential administrations, right?
Yeah. I think it straddled a couple.
So you've been working on this one project for a long time, for the past few years, I'm assuming. And this isn't something I've encountered just yet, because I haven't had a long form project that I haven't finished. But you're kind of at a very interesting intersection where in the past you've had to ask other people for help for maybe fabrication ideas or XYZ.
Yeah.
I'm noticing now a lot more people are just asking GPT. And so I'm curious, over the past year and a half, 2 years, has your research method style changed from other people in the shop to people or GPT online? Because now I know Reddit has always been like a really popular forum. So I'm just curious how that iteration process has changed.
That's a great question. And I will say, first of all, that when I was writing the software to cut out these pieces and stuff, it was very early ChatGPT days. So I did use it at that time to try to teach me a little bit of 3D math, which I've all forgotten by now. But it was still mostly useless for writing software. About a year later, I asked Claude Code, like I just told him what I had done and to kind of describe the project, and it rebuilt everything I'd done over like a course of maybe 3 months better in about 10 minutes. So that was interesting. But as far as like fabrication techniques, I kind of shoot the breeze with it a little bit. It doesn't usually have the greatest ideas for it. I think probably because it's kind of hard to describe what I'm trying to do a lot of times. So for something like a welding technique or like how to cut the rods out, the Asmbly server, the chat there is actually still a lot better because just people who have actually been doing it for a long time. If this was more of like a structural piece and I was asking like how to make it not fall over, there's probably a lot more online that the AI has been trained on for that kind of stuff, but like it's not as much about this kind of stuff because maybe not enough people are crazy enough to do it. So for software stuff and for like what kind of materials exist, it's great. But for fabrication techniques, it's kind of hit or miss. It's a good thought partner though.
So have you discovered scale? Is scale easier large, small?
Way easier large, yeah. The next one I'm doing after this is a bear. It's a life-size bear, and it's good. I imagine it's going to be half as many pieces and take me half as much time because you're not at all trying to press fit into there. Like, let me see if I can get back to Ilya's thing. Like the Machu Picchu one, where is it? Sorry. Where'd she go? The Machu Picchu is not even remotely. It's like there's big spaces in there, right? Also, it uses triangles, which triangles is a good idea when you're doing low poly because they don't bend. There's no way with 3 points that you can always get a flat shape. But when you're doing something like this, like even though the dinosaur was like a little bit closer to fitted, you get a lot of clearance in there. So large scale, and then from a few feet away, you can't even see the clearance. So like this is intentional. She wanted you to see the spaces, but it's just a lot easier to large scale.
Any other questions?
So, what's next? Or like, do you anticipate this going to any other types of mediums, like besides acrylic?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've got a couple more of these in me, I think. I got the bear for the one neighbor, and then there's the neighbors across the street want a bat, like a big bat on a pedestal. So I'm gonna do those, and then I do like working with acrylic, but I think I'd like to explore curvature and bending a little bit, and some more curved shapes. But I feel like at least 4 of these to like kind of make a unit and then maybe branch out from there. I mean, we're talking in the era of decades now, probably. So
the
so
style like lends itself to so many types of mediums too. Like you could do textiles and stuff. It's so like modular.
Yeah, the original dinosaur, or not the original one, but the 2.0, before I kind of settled on acrylic, I really wanted to put cloth panels in there. And I still think it would be cool, but these things live outdoors, and so you want things that are like Dino 2.0 gets hosed off practically weekly, gets a lot of bird poop on him, like, so yeah, it's good to have things that are easy to clean and keep out of the elements.
And then I might have missed it, but have you played around with like any internal lighting?
This guy and the previous one have kind of disco lighting, so it's from the outside. There's a bunch of lights that shine on them. The original plan for this was to put LED strip lights inside, but I realized I'd already bit off as much as I wanted to chew. I might still leave some of these panels, rather than gluing them in, which is how I'm going to do most of these. I might put some in with magnets, kind of like the top of this guy was put in with a magnet, just so you can get in there and drain it if it doesn't end up being as watertight as I want, and maybe put some lights in, but they light up just fine from outside too.
Awesome, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll have more time at the end of the presentation to, if you didn't get to ask you any questions, feel free to engage in that during that time.
All right.
Great, thank you, Scott.
Of course. You want me to get Art set up on here? All right.
Give us a few minutes to reset, and then we'll be right back.
So let me get my thing off of here. All right. Then.
One of our board member here, Art, and with his project, Community Food Pantry.
All right, thank you. Again, my name's Art, and before I'm a board member, I'm also a member. Okay, so I'm just like anyone else here. I've been a member since 2021. Got involved at the time, it was when they just transitioned from ATX Hackerspace to Asmbly. So when I came the first time, it was still ATX, and I was like, I don't know if anyone knows of the haunted house that's out in Highland. I thought this was, just a subset of that because it was so kind of spooky in here. But after COVID and it opened back up, I came back and checked it out one more time, mainly because my tools started breaking down that I had bought. So gave it another chance, and I could see the 180 that it had done, and I said, oh, this is something I can get involved with. Really enjoyed it at that time. So again, I've been a member since 2021. I try to make it a point when I do come in here to meet someone new. If I haven't gotten to everyone, I apologize, but I'm retired from the city of Austin now, so I sometimes come during the day. But if you see me, I always welcome people to come up, talk to me, let me know how they enjoy Asmbly. So, and this is how this kind of basically started here. It started with a conversation with one of the members, a new member. Her name is Shonda. She was out in the community, heavily involved with the Far East Austin, Texas community. And somewhere in their conversation, they talked about a food pantry. I came in and I met her in the lasers and kind of helped her because she was still new, and I kind of just gave her some guidance. We got to talking, got to know her, and she asked me a question, hey, if someone has an idea, can we get, people involved and stuff like this? So I pointed her to Discourse. And then on January 19th, she put out of that conversation, she put out a call, right? and she posted on Discourse right here, hey, I'd really love some help. She did not know anything about the wood shop. All she knew is when she first started was lasers. But because of that post she put out on January 19th, we had some members answer that call, okay? And in doing so, Eric, who was a former board member, also a member here, very knowledgeable and became like the architect of it. Frank, Steve, all members, myself a member, we all just started talking on Discourse and doing the planning of it. And along those lines, Eric says, hey, I'll design it up in his CAD drawing. And then I said, hey, I've got a bunch of materials. So I'm not a full-blown hoarder, but I do hold on to stuff probably longer than I should. So I had a bunch of materials. Eric did the SketchUp of it, and that's the materials that were just sitting in my backyard for years. And I was like, man, this would be perfect. We could take it to the shop, we could mill it up and start putting something together. So that's exactly what we did. We started in February. We kind of waited till after the new dust collection system because, you know, we needed some space and didn't want to move it. But first picture shows milling. Those 6x6 cedar boards were milled down, came out really pretty. And then we started doing the designing. Eric, with his help, started designing everything. Then we got into staining. I had a bucket of stain just sitting there that a buddy had given me. I said, let's take it, let's use it. And then, you know, finally we started to do the assembling part of it. So what came out of that was this food pantry here that we went and put out on June 4th at the Far East Austin, Texas community. And it's got it's under a little pavilion there that they had designated for it. This was delivery day. We all came in, 5 of us. I had a trailer. We threw it on my trailer. We transported it over there. It's probably about 12 miles east, a little bit right outside of 130. It's Forest Bluff, I believe. But yeah, you'll see the pictures. We get there, we set it up. They told us where we wanted it, where they wanted it and everything. And then here's a picture of Shonda and just, you know, having a good time. And then I went back this week for this presentation and did a little bird's eye view of it, kind of. So I don't think the volume's up or. Yeah. So recently for my birthday, I got a drone. I'm not perfect, and I had a buddy of mine that uses CapCut, and he helped me put that together. So hopefully I get a little bit better on doing that. But what I really believe in Asmbly is our mission. You know, our mission is to enrich Austin's creative community by providing a top-notch creative space with tools, educational opportunities, multidisciplinary, inviting, member-focused stuff. So Asmbly isn't just a membership place for members to gather to use tools. It's a place where knowledge, friendship, skills are built, then carried out into the community to be shared. And that's exactly what we did. The 5 of us, I have seen them before, but we never worked together. We never talked, you know, but we got together weekly to create this food pantry. And sometimes we'd come in here and just, you know, get to know one another, have lunch with one another, and just get to know each other, and built the friendship now, you know. And in part of that, the gratitude from the community. I mean, you can see they sent us a letter And they called out Asmbly. We are especially grateful for those who contributed their time, skills, resources to bring this beautiful custom design second pantry to life. It was Frank, Eric, myself, Steve, and Shonda. Also extend sincere thanks to Asmbly Austin. I enjoy that because they're getting to know Asmbly, that there is a place where people come together and make things for the community. Okay, I spoke to a lady when I went to go get some footage. Her name was Linda, and I kind of, I asked her, hey, what do you think of the food pantry? What do you mainly use it for? And she just said, sometimes they're short on food and stuff, and she's cooking dinner for her family. So she may stop by there and see if there's any sides so she can give her family a complete full meal. So I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And then this here is the original one that Richard Franklin built that was there. And then that's kind of how the conversation got it started, is they wanted something bigger, right? So then that's when Shonda got in and did that. So what I asked today is, what will you build? This project started with one post, 4 members who said yes, and what could start with any one of us, okay? If you've got an idea, I was talking to a new member here that I just met in the Lasers Lab, and she's talking about like community gardens, and I was like, it'd be cool, making the little stakes for their little, things, but stuff like that. The other thing, I started this back probably about 2 years ago. We had talked about building toys for underprivileged children in the community. We started meeting, but unfortunately, I kind of got a little busy with my church and put that to the back burner, but I would love to resurrect it. So, I want to put out a call for doing that, making toys, and then collecting them probably November, just going out and giving them to the community, not selling them, just giving them away, right? And then again, it just starts with the conversation as you're out in the community. If you start with a conversation, you hear someone, just let them know Asmbly exists. If we can help them, awesome, And that is the end of my presentation.
Anyone have any questions for Art?
Eric, so when you all were building the pantry, like over a period of time, were you just storing it in the wood shop over time?
Yes, and that's kind of why we started after the dust collector, because we knew the idea was to keep it on my trailer and transport it back and forth. But we reached out to Asmbly and we asked them, hey, it's pretty big. I mean, it's like 5 feet wide, 2 feet long, 7 feet high. And they were kind enough to say, hey, okay, you could have it, restored it here. It took us a little longer than we wanted, quite honestly. I mean, not everyone was retired, so we kind of had to work around schedules and stuff. But yeah, so we stored it here in the shop, and Michael was kind enough to allow us to store it in there and keep on tabs. Hey, we got this, can we move it? Oh, sure, But I greatly appreciate that, because that's what we like here in Asmbly is to be able to come in and get to things easily and not have just people clutter up the shop. Yeah, good question, thank you.
How long did the project take? I know you say you started in January, February.
So idea came in January 19th, around right after the dust collector, so that was the end of February is when we really got cracking on it. Mm-hmm. So, and then we took it out there on June 4th. It was about the end of May, we were done. Okay. Yeah, nice. So June 4th. Yeah. Huh? What's that? It's light speed. That's oh, yeah. That was fast. Yeah.
So, of your whole team, what were the skill levels of being able to build?
Yeah, good question. How do I get back to that? Let me just go to this slide here. So, as I said, Shonda had no experience in the wood shop. Okay. Eric is our chief architect design, has a lot of knowledge in metals, wood, lasers, 3D printing. So he was a big help to us. Frank had just started with woodshop, playing with the CNC, so he kind of made their logo, their community logo, to put on the door. Steve was, hey, I've got some hands, and in the middle of that, his hands went down. He had to get some carpal tunnel surgery, but he donated hardware, but in help, stained and stuff like that. And then myself, I just do it as a hobby, but I know how to screw things in. I know how to measure. I know how to cut. So pretty much intermediate skill level, I would say, except for Eric. Eric was probably our, resident master carpenter.
But for the project, you didn't actually need necessarily everybody to have a significant skill. You had people that were coming in with no skill, minimal skill, or different skill sets.
Correct.
So
yeah.
future projects, one of the things to keep in mind is it's a good way to learn on somebody else's dime.
Right. Well,
Not
not only that, Shonda, she was very thankful because she learned quite a bit. Cutting miter cuts on the miter saw, and just doing stuff that she never even thought about doing, just because, she had never done it. How to use a drill. She had never used a drill and stuff of that. So yeah, she used a lot of tools and came out.
Projects like this and then volunteering here are excellent ways to learn
Definitely.
things that you never would have thought you'd ever need or use. So.
Yeah, the membership is what makes Asmbly so great, because the community here, I don't think, I've been here since 2021, and again, I'm very friendly. I talk to everyone. Never encountered anyone that was just a real a-hole. There's one that's a little rough around the edges, but he's a really good guy. Jose, I don't know if any of y'all met. Jose is, he's a little rough around the edges, but very knowledgeable and always there to help in whatever.
Art, if you did this again, how would you maybe change your process? Like, what did you learn from doing it this time around?
I would really like to see a little bit more commitment as far as like, okay, let's get this done, and hey, but because it was our first one and we were kind of muddling through it, we were like, okay, well, what if we do this to that piece there and stuff, or what if we insert the logo and stuff like that. But once we have a plan, I think we could just say, okay, we don't have to come together all together, but someone can come in that day and mill down the boards, boom, or cut the things with the right plans and stuff. So I think, yeah, if we could just, get it more drilled down to like, okay, hey, you do this, this, and that, I think it'd go a lot faster, quite honestly.
Awesome. Thank you so much
All right.
for the presentation.
Thank y'all for letting me present.
Great.
Thank you for letting me borrow your laptop.
Yes. Thank you. Again, give us a few minutes to reset. We'll be right back. All right, everyone, we're about to get started. You can grab your seat and then get comfortable. All right. Next up, we have Evan with his project, Making Spaces, from his recent trips. Take it away, please.
Hi, folks. Good afternoon. I'm Evan. I've been an Assembly member for about 2 years. This is a little bit of a weird project presentation because I'm kind of here to present somebody else's project. So we'll leave it up to you. Did I hit my head too hard while I was, that's legit ceiling height, by the way. Did I hit my head too hard? You can judge by the end of the talk here. I had the opportunity to travel for work to Cebu, Philippines, visit a bunch of colleagues, get to meet a bunch of people, and experience a lot. It was a great trip. One of my colleagues there is involved in a makerspace there. She runs a bunch of like women in tech events, that sort of thing. I want to share what I saw and I learned from another makerspace. So. I'm going to go through a few things. We're going to start with snacks, don't worry. I'll talk about the making space, do some little contrast with Asmbly here, talk about materials, economics, culture, philosophy, small topics. It'll be good. First, what is this? This is puso. This is hanging rice, a traditional way they make rice in the Philippines. This is the actual ones, and some resin-printed and clear-coated puso earrings. And I have some here to hand out. If you want to take a look, these are little textile woven versions. They have a kit that they have for that, and so there's a couple more to make in each of these boxes that we can do at some point. All right, good, snack break. Let's talk about space. Making Space Cebu is the first and only thing of its kind in the Philippines. They have woodworking, printers, lasers, tools, snacks, work tables, messes, projects in progress, all the usual stuff, right? It's open access, anybody can book. Slightly different from Asmbly because they do sort of a pay-as-you-go machine time thing. They're in process for their nonprofit NGO status in the Philippines. That takes a whole bunch of paperwork probably that Asmbly's already gone through. They're located in the 3rd floor of a mall. They've sort of taken over 5, 6 little suites in a corner, which means that all of that shop space is air conditioned, which is really important. We have that here too. Love it. It's as important, if not more important in the Philippines than here. It sounds pretty familiar. We'll take a tour and see the details and see what I learned. So it turns out everything's completely different. No, the makers are pretty much the same. Got to clean up your mess. It's very similar. You'll find it very familiar. Here's some of the art that I want to start with, because the art is everywhere in this space, right? This is sort of the alcove between some of the suites and spaces, like the hallway things. Murals by several people. Most of them are unsigned, I think. I love the Make No Evil slogan. That's a good one. But my favorite is the hand. That's actually a street map of Cebu. In the veins with an unusual orientation, and the location of like some landmarks and the makerspace are tagged out on the map. So that's fun. It's a great vision for a mural. This is a shelf full of like part project display, part stock shelves. Some of these things are like available in some other shops in the city that they make and sell. It's not really set up for sale or browsing. That's a broken Prusa Mark III down there waiting repairs. Yeah, that happens. But it's just sort of fun to have that on display of things people are selling out in the world. Tea break. I know we just had snacks. It's okay. There's a tea and sandwich shop, which is very interesting because one of the little suites there has like a kitchen in it. It's also the gallery and sort of lounging space. Happens to have the best AC in the space. That's important. Each of these suites is air conditioned. The like general mall corridor is not. It is very hot. Like Houston summer hot. A little bit worse than Austin. All the stools and tables are made in the space. The walls have 2D and 3D art from local makers, wood, plastic, prints. Not all of them were made necessarily in the space, like the oil paintings and such, but many of them were. This is really not part of the tour, but I wanted to share my favorite piece in the gallery at the time. It's 2 pieces by an artist named Golda King. One is a painting of like a blank canvas or open white brick on a gray wall in a gray frame. Empty space, painted in 2022, stark contrast of the canvas from the grays. Right below it is the ashes of every work and journal from that artist from 2020 to 2022. This is an entire pandemic of work she purposefully destroyed and then created a blank canvas to start with. All that gray in the painting is pigmented with those ashes. That's why this is my favorite in there. So, all right, let's look at some actual project spaces. The wood shop. Yeah, this is the wood shop. You can do a lot with actually not a lot of dedicated space. It takes some extra time. It's not as convenient. And you don't necessarily start with like 4x8 sheets of plywood or something, right? But I've made more with less in my garage with just a circular saw, right? My shop furniture was made without a table saw or miter saw that they have there. A bunch of battery and corded tools there. I think they have 3 workbenches like this sort of along this wall that stack up. But yeah, totally usable like wood shop. Maybe not for huge projects, but like you can do a lot with that. A 3D printing space. They've got an A1 with a AMS and an A1 Mini. They have resin in this enclosure here, and there's sort of wash and cure stations out there. There's material and tool storage everywhere. There's a Cricut hiding in the background. We got empty filament spools, which just reminds me of home. That's my office. I feel right at home in that space. So they have a paint booth, which is an interesting idea. They have sprayers and cans, an airbrush. They have a box filter and an exhaust fan set up there. What they don't have is a better picture. This is I actually had to go asking a coworker for this better picture, but like not a great capture of the space. And they don't really have quite the fume regulations that we do here. But it is in sort of a back room. It does have its own exhaust. When you're painting there, it's a trade-off between AC power expenditure and the exhaust and heating up the room. I'd rather have AC and a respirator myself, so I'd rather wear that. The rest of the fumes don't really get out into the space. It was totally fine in the wood shop right outside the door just because of how the air flows in the space. So, that's a cool idea, and it's actually a really small amount of space to dedicate for painting in that way. This is not a picture of the back rooms. This is their multi-purpose room, event space, photo, video studio. They have that cool like seamless photo backdrop with the curve built in some plywood and some vent there. The windows along there have blackout curtains. Those go out to sort of the interior corridor. There's a projector on a ceiling mount and a whole rack of equipment for lighting, photography, all of that, a pallet rack of stuff. Yeah, it turns out the kids are making videos these days, and having space to do that is interesting. There have been some cool video shoots and events held in that space. And it's all just space for making. I brought my last showcase project along, Maker Chip, to show here. This is Stephanie, who made those earrings, and is the proprietor of the space. Toward the end of the tour, after talking about a bunch of projects and talking about printing and spaces and all this sort of stuff, Stephanie asked me a question that I did not have an answer for, which is how do you build a DIY culture? This is the only makerspace in the country. As of the last census, Cebu City has 965,000 people. Austin has 961,000 people, right? Somehow we have more space and more like DIY. We're all here, right? Trying to launch an organization like this that has no competitors or similar businesses into a market with no others is pretty tough, right? You can ask any startup founder. Successful competitors are just market validation. It means somebody will do something with that. It seems like we have a pretty strong DIY culture here, right? So asking me is a totally reasonable thing. How do you build a DIY culture from scratch? I had no idea. I promised to think about it and analyze the problem, and I want to sort of show you what I found and learned. And so the first thing I want to do is, I'm not qualified at all to teach you about Philippines history after one visit. I want to highlight a few things to anchor you on the problem to solve, how difficult it is to make things, not just in space, but in materials and time and just the position in the world, right? So raw materials, making always takes materials. Historically, Cebu has about less than 5% of its forests left, right? Most wood is imported. Almost all of it is plywood. The volume is important. You don't have to plane and create a bunch of waste or joint hardwoods, essentially. It's stable. You don't have to waste any material, right? But it's almost all imported plywood. If you think about maybe crafting in metal, right? Manufacturing metal stock takes a huge amount of power. Most of the power is imported from the whole island, right? 60% of their onshore stock is imported. Most of the rest is coal. They do have solar projects ramping up, and they have some like 2040 goals that are trying to be power independent on the island, right? But they do have scheduled blackouts rolling through weekly and monthly. Unscheduled blackouts are fairly common. People know how to just deal with that in their work. Battery backups are very common as well. So welding also takes power, and that may not be totally reliable. So plastic. There are some plastic manufacturers, but they're really the high volume industrial plastics, packaging, films, that sort of thing. They don't have any oil refining. Their only oil refining project is getting started back up this year on the sort of the opposite side of the island. Bamboo Labs, for instance, has a near monopoly on 3D printer distribution there, and filament is available, but the prices are not much different than the US. But the cost of living generally is a lot less, right? So if you say, hey, US cheap filament prices, but on an average income of 6K a year, right? You've got very different material costs for basic 3D prints, even just PLA, things like that. That's the case for almost any material with a global market. US prices are really expensive generally. Most global market, like fuel, is really expensive. Fuel costs are a huge impact there. Labor costs are very low, right? Because low cost of living generally, so like food and help. And so there's not really a like impetus to be like, oh, I could save a bunch of money by doing that myself, right? You can just hire somebody to do it, and it's relatively accessible. It all comes down to geography and history. Being on an island, right? Travel to and from an island is expensive and difficult, and lots of resources are limited. So what could you do, even with a space like this, with these kind of limitations? Pretty tough problem to solve. Don't get too discouraged, because we are makers, and getting resourceful is DIY culture. So they have a DIY culture, right? Like I can't help them build one. Imports are expensive, so repair is necessary. You see this everywhere. You're repairing and repurposing things. They're reusing and adapting things to new purposes, remixing whatever they want to. Branding copyright is a little bit more lax there. And rebuild. The Philippines gets about 10 typhoons a year that make landfall there. They're on the Pacific Rim with earthquakes and stuff, and so often you need to rebuild, but often you just kind of rebuild to fit your new needs, right? New goals. This is a restaurant buffet. It's powered by another small boat, but it's like sort of welded together. Nobody makes a pontoon boat with a smaller boat to drive it, right? Somebody just built that, right? They just put it together themselves and they run it. They've got a fleet of these things for this floating restaurant tour. That is a small Japanese truck, a few years old. They generally, after they get retired from service in Japan, are disassembled into bins of auto parts and then shipped across, and then reassembled into maybe approximately the same truck from parts, and then painted and covered with inaccurate stickers and fun things, right? Like the DIY and modification culture is there. They don't need my DIY culture, right? It's present, and everybody there is already resourceful. So then the question becomes, how do you bring these resourceful people together? Well, what brought you here? Why are you here? Why am I here? I won't go too far into philosophy, but I went looking for that. Why am I here? I wanted to do some comprehensive tracing of US DIY culture, maybe find some cultural references and inflection points, and then help with those and provide some references to produce the same kind of community and thing we have here, right? We're not going to have time for that either. We're not doing that way too much. So touch the high points real quick. There's a lot here. We'll touch them all. You didn't used to DIY things. You just have to make something to live, to make the thing you need, right? So before like industrial and on the frontier, you just had to make something. That wasn't a DIY thing. During the manufacturing era, you have this cycle of new manufactured high status goods and then crafted and local bespoke things becoming high status, and just back and forth, back and forth. Somewhere in there, 1850s-ish, Thoreau writes Walden to not a lot of initial sales and talks about like the simple life and making everything yourself. Okay. 100 years later, you have the war and post-war, where suddenly everybody has trade skills, making is patriotic. Then afterwards we go back to, we officially invent the DIY term, and we sort of like split things into arts and crafts and DIY and different crafts and things like that. Everyone here starts talking about Walden, just maybe show that they've read Walden. 60s and 70s, you have the DIY counterculture sort of things and ham radio. Most of that's before my time, so that's research-ish, right? And then 90s, you have this sort of rediscovery of this DIY culture with like Tim Taylor and the Red Green Show. Things going into the early 2000s with like Mythbusters, right? All this making stuff becomes sort of popular. You sort of start talking about that. And then all of a sudden, all these articles, once everybody wants to write about Walden again, maybe because they just want to show they've read that thing. 2010s, we all probably were around a bit for the maker movement, like with Make Magazine, electronics DIY, and Arduino, making all of that accessible. Open 3D printing getting started. We've been around for the Etsy era, people selling things where the handmade and bespoke is really important now. And then going even forward, right, we are currently debating about like, well, how can we DIY anything with EVs? How do we have right repair on anything that we buy? Do we even buy things, or are we just licensing a car from somebody, right? What does the end of ownership look like? I'll share some links for reading later, don't worry about it. None of this really hit for me. Sure, I can learn about the history, it's interesting. But that doesn't tell me what motivates me to make, right? There's some things here that speak to me, right? Going to your garage and find there a temporary Walden, a little bit of work, right? There's zen in that. There's room for just dreams and doing whatever you want in a garage. There's all the discourse about Walden and who helped him with laundry and how far off the field he was. It's a 20-minute walk, it was fine. It turns out my motivations, my projects tend to be kind of more infrastructure-y. So even in my home shop, right, I want to did a good garage floor. I did some like shelving for parts and putting up all the tools, getting things ready. I do enjoy the craft and the pride and the struggle of making a thing and like testing your brain against the reality of your materials. I like making things for other people. I like giving those away, that's great. But I mostly kind of find myself working on big pile of filament storage and a library of colors at home, right? I worked on that a bit, restoring a tool like a hand plane or modifying it to improve it like 3D printers, or just fixing up tools and machines. A good shop floor lighting, enough tools. One of my favorite projects I was able to help with was a friend who's like, hey, we need to make some plywood sales carts for a booth at the Armadillo Bazaar. So we got a few sheets of plywood and stayed up until 1 a.m. prototyping with a circular saw, putting that together, and then we made 6 of those eventually in the garage. I had just enough stuff to get that sort of thing done and to help. That's the kind of thing I like to work on. So I know I'm not the only one who's inspired by like seeing a nice workshop of tools and machines and materials and possibilities everywhere. That blank canvas comes to mind. I love seeing everyone's projects. This is my favorite event, right? By a lot. I love helping people solve problems, showing up to the space and having that dialogue. Maybe as a dream, like helping somebody actually tackle something that they didn't think was even possible. That would be awesome. Can I give them a little bit of boost there? But my projects themselves never seem quite as important as making a space full of possibility. It takes constant care and attention, doing the laundry, basically. It takes our staff and volunteers here to make that happen. So I'm really grateful to share that load here with others. It's not just my garage that's available. If that motivates you as well, I would encourage you to volunteer. There's no way anybody could do all of this alone. It's really great. Someone had to literally make this space. So my talk title has been a pun the whole time. I'm not sorry about it. So I'm gonna leave you with the same question, having answered this, that Stephanie asked me. The question I'm not sure that I'm able to answer for anybody else, which is, how do you build a DIY culture? Thanks, everybody, and some research links for you here.
Questions for Evan?
So given the standard of living and the income that you were stating for the city that you were in, like what kind of people were able to make use of that space in general? Like, and what was the affordability of it?
It's quite affordable. Like it's priced to the market basically, right? Most things are like just cost of living is much lower and affordable in the city, and the average income in the city is above the cost of living here, right? Which has not been true for Austin for a while. The U.S. is a very expensive place. So like most things, food, transport, all of that, really very affordable, and the time booked in the space quite affordable, right? Really the things that are not affordable outside are things that have to come from outside the economy itself, which is global material supply.
So is it like, what kind of demographic? Was it more younger people or like all across the board, like established artists or?
All across the board, yeah. There's a few people like we have here that are like in tech and like to make things with their hands in between. That's what I like to do. Getting hands dirty is great. And then there's a couple of like just out of college students maybe who are working on their own projects while I was visiting the space. You have some artists that maybe not there on the weekdays, but they're there like setting up their gallery display on the weekends or something like that. So it's a pretty wide gamut, yeah. And the affordability of like the machine time and stuff is quite cheap. So
very cool.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Evan.
Thank you all
Awesome
for
presentation.
having me.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Right now, we're going to kick off into our open mic section, and starting us off, our new director of program, Adam Stowe, will have a few words talking about what we are working on lately with our space.
Thank you, Alex. This is less a presentation about any physical item that's being made and more a thank you presentation. Just a quick word about the space and about some partners we've been working with. So Alex asked me to chat just a little bit about the Elevate grant. So recently, Asmbly Makerspace was awarded a grant with the City of Austin with the Acme department, which is the arts, culture, music, and entertainment section of Austin. So it's all about bringing people to Austin, tourism, art, entertainment, excitement, bringing people into the community, and then just showcasing a bit of what Austin has to offer. And so some of those funds have gone into events like this today. They've gone into our summer maker camp. We've been having kids in here every week, learning how to make, learning how to create, trying to fill gaps in educational opportunities for those kids. Scholarships were a part of this that we've been able to offer. So a lot of what I just wanted to say was thank you to Acme and to the City of Austin, to the Elevate people. Thank you to all of you for making Asmbly possible, for the members who make this space so great, for the volunteers who come to these events. We just wanted to say thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting us do what we're doing. And we're looking forward to continuing to work with the City of Austin to bring more cool events. So keep an eye out this year because there's a lot more things on the docket to come, including our big maker market at the end of the year, some other cool things. So yeah, keep an eye out. Thank you to the City of Austin for that. And we appreciate all of you as members, volunteers, makers. We just want to continue to make that possible for people. So thank you. That's all I have to say. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you, Adam. That's very exciting. All right. Any open mic presenters? Art?
Yeah, presenter, can I plug something?
Of course. Please, come on by.
I forgot to plug Shonda, the one that got us together to make that food pantry. She's still working with that community. And every year for Halloween, they make for the community, for the children there, they make like a big old haunted house kind of stuff. So she will be putting on a call, so keep an eye out on Discourse for help to help contribute to making that haunted house. I'm not exactly sure what that entails, whether it's making, cutouts or what it is, but I just wanted to let y'all know if you really want to get involved in the community and stuff, she's going to need some help.
Do you know what the platform she'll be posting that on?
Discourse. I told her to put it on Discourse, yeah. I mean, just the same way she did with the food pantry, do it on Discourse. Yes, sir. Do you need a mic?
Like future projects where we could use input from the maker community. What channel on Discord should we look to at?
What channels should we look for those kind of initiatives on Discourse for the future?
You know, I don't mess with discourse that much, so I don't know what kind of channels we have on there. I know that I've seen some about, policy and, just general. I would just say actually just the general discourse, Yeah, and again, I encourage everyone as you're out there in the community and you're talking to people, if you hear something that maybe Assembly might be able to get involved with, bring it, Adam, Director of Programming now. We've got our first executive director, Galen Wicks, in there. Any staff member. I mean, just to have the conversation. Just start it. Just start that conversation. That's what I tell everyone.
Cool.
All right, awesome.
All
Thanks,
right.
Art.
Thank y'all.
All right, next, I think we have someone. Great, Austin?
All right. I have a very, very simple project to share. I noticed that we had a problem, which was that 6 months ago or so, we rebuilt the scrap cart in the wood shop, and those of you that are frequent users may know that. And I don't know if that's super well known. And so it feels like there's less good stuff in the scrap cart than there used to be. And so I wanted to make sure people knew what is the scrap cart so that we can get more good stuff in the scrap cart. Now, when you think about making a sign at Asmbly, there's like 1.5 million different ways that you could go about doing this. Textiles comes to mind. You could sublimate directly onto a piece of wood. That would probably work pretty well. You could like 3D print a sign in 2 different colors. That would work really well. We have some of those. You could laser, certainly laser. I chose to CNC out a channel in this board and then fill it with colored epoxy. Mostly because I haven't worked with epoxy very much. I kind of wanted to practice. Shop projects are great ways to practice. So I am going to go affix this to the scrap cart after this is over so people know what is the scrap cart. And I think things I learned from this were if you just plain like send a piece of wood through the planer with epoxy, it leaves a really nice shiny finish. And then, of course, the next thing you do with wood is you sand it. And then your finish becomes very, very kind of rustic like this. So I would have probably just sent this through the planer. That way this epoxy would be shiny instead of kind of muddled like it is now. That's what I learned out of this shop project. But I know you had mentioned we were working on a 3D printer, and you had mentioned that Asmbly is a duocracy. I loved that. If you see a problem, you can fix it. Just do it. I didn't ask anybody to do this. I'm just like, we need a sign, so I made a sign. So that's my thing. Yeah, go ahead, Art. What's up, Art?
Hello, testing.
Yeah, so I recently did something kind of similar, but not for the scrap cart. But if you put a finish on it, it'll bring that shine back.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's far too fancy for a
well,
shop project.
There you go.
But that is helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Austin. All right, anybody else? Danny, I know you got a few things laid out. Would you want to talk about it?
Not ready.
Not yet?
Yeah, I wish right now.
Next time. All right, anyone else?
If I had a couple photos, can I just like screen here?
Sure, let's try and put that on there.
Hello. Nice. That was much easier than I expected. Okay, I have nothing prepared, but I figured maybe if I do this impromptu one, I'll be more prepared to do like a full maker showcase in the future. And I just wanted to share something that Asmbly helped me make for a recent gallery of mine, or a gallery I was involved in. What's that? Oh, my name's Danny. I'm new to Assembly, just a couple of months, but I've been racing around trying to get all of my introductions to each space. I took lasers, I took wood shop. I'm about to do the box building class at the wood shop. I'm super excited for, and I'm starting to pace myself to make sure that everything sinks in before I just jump to the new space. So in this project, I made use of the laser space and the woodworking space, which I had actually signed up for and then just found that it was like the perfect skills to kind of complement this project that I wanted to work on. So I was part of a group exhibit with some other local naturalists. I work with the Capitol Area Master Naturalists who just have an educational program around learning different things about the local ecology. And what we do with that knowledge is kind of like this space. We're a group that goes out and volunteers and kind of fills needs around Austin using that kind of training on the ecology. So a bunch of us from that program were involved in this exhibit that is recovering the lost words. So as you can see here, Recovering the Lost Words brings together the artwork of Texas master naturalists to memorialize words from nature that were removed from the Oxford Junior Dictionary in recent years. Words such as acorn, dandelion, heron, wren were removed because they were no longer considered part of the everyday life of young children. Through photography, illustration, stained glass, painting, and mixed media, artists reintroduced these lost words, encouraging viewers of all ages to rediscover the language, wonder, and presence of the natural world. Together, the participating artists translate these words into visual form, offering a shared reflection on the memory, language, and our relationship to nature. So, as part of this exhibit, my word that I was recovering was newt. And I love newts and salamanders. So what I wanted to do for my piece was kind of do a three-dimensional cutout. And I have a background with painting, so I was comfortable with that part of it, but I really wanted to kind of like broaden my skills and kind of see how I could push it using other techniques and stuff from this community. So the laser came in super handy because this would have been really difficult to do any other way. That's a lot of really tiny curves and stuff for a hand router. I haven't done my CNC training yet, but this might be a place for that in the future. So I got my newt cut out, and this was it going through, which is, it's just so cool to watch for me. It's like a superpower or something, laser vision.
How did you get that video? That's great.
Oh, I mean, it was just what is her name? Dorian. She has a perfect window, and so I just did it through the window at the front. I didn't have it open while I was running, don't worry. But yeah, I've been trying to like see cool different angles to get at the laser because it's just so cool to watch it go. Yeah, nice. So yeah, this is what it looked like after it was cut out. And what I did after I had it cut out was take it over to the wood shop, and I sanded around all of the edges, all the nooks and crannies, because when you have a real organism, it's not going to be like super like a sharp cut. So in the places where you're kind of looking at it, I just rounded those edges to just give it a little bit more visual depth. And that step really helped. I feel like anytime you use a laser, if you like think about the next step and how you can kind of get it towards the nature of whatever you're trying to portray, will always help the final project. So then I went into the portion that I was most excited and interested in, was the painting. I did a base layer of gesso with some orange mixed in to get the base layer in. This is my little setup in my living room until we have a painting space here. But this is just starting to add texture, and I have a slide later on, or a picture that tells you about newts, but they have all of these little bumps along their skin. So it was really cool to kind of capture that texture. That's my reference image in the background. And this is when he was starting to get fully cut out, or fully finished. And I chose to do a purple instead of a black for the edges, just because it kind of resonates with the orange and kind of makes it a little bit more vibrant. Because these guys, in their F stage, are really vibrant, because they're wanting to signal to potential predators that they are highly toxic. So that's what the orange is for. So I really wanted to amp that up by kind of complementing it with the purple. And this is my assistant helping me out. And then the next thing I wanted to do was, so originally I had this plywood in the background that I was going to paint a background on and then mount it. But then I realized I really liked the detail of the newts, and I felt like I didn't have a set background for painting the plywood. So I thought about instead getting just a really nice piece of wood that has a lot of wood grain in it, a little thicker, a little darker. So I ended up getting a piece of cherry from Austin Fine Lumber, and I got it at a huge discount because it had all these grooves and knots in it, and there was parts of it that were chunked away. So it wasn't good for, construction, but it was great for my purposes, added a little extra texture. And then all of these, the lasers came in handy again because I realized I needed a little bit more detail to fill the space. So I cut out all of these little pieces of lichen, because newts like wet environments. And then I cut out all of these on the laser and then painted them. And then attached them with hot glue because it was the day before the exhibit opened. But the hot glue was actually nice because since it has substance to it, as it was drying, I could quickly press my thumb at the top part of the piece of lichen so I could angle them all up. So that way they all have shadow, and it gives the whole thing a little bit more depth. And then as I was finishing the piece of cherry, I don't know if this is technically good to do, but as I was applying the beeswax, I included a little bit of ink into the areas that would be where the shadow would be on the newt to kind of emphasize the depth. I don't know how that'll look whenever the wax dries, but hopefully it'll stand up. And then when I was at the opening of the exhibit, I had a couple extra lichen pieces left, so I made earrings. I really love making earrings out of everything, so yeah, this was the day that it opened. And that's it. And thanks to Asmbly for helping me make it happen.
Any questions for him?
Where is the gallery again?
Oh, the Daughtery Art Center in Austin by Barton Springs.
Is it still open?
Yeah, it's
Right
still
now?
open till August 12th, I think. And there's an artist talk on August 12th. There's a lot of other naturalists did pieces for the exhibit, so I just showed mine, but there's a lot of work there. There's stained glass, oil, someone did printmaking, so it's a huge variety of mediums that they did for that.
What was the name once more of the gallery?
It's the Daughtery Art Center, and the exhibit name is Recovering the Lost Words. Because there's a couple cool exhibits in there too that you should check out.
Okay, great.
Lo, how'd you manage to mount the newt onto the cherry wood?
So I knew that it was like the day or two before that all this was coming together before I had to display it. So I had a couple of extra, someone had cut out all of these hexagons in the laser space, and they were just the perfect size and the perfect depth. So I actually lifted the newt a little bit off and attached some of these plywood hexagons with wood glue and a couple of them with hot glue. Just so like the hot glue is gonna be immediately there holding on to it, and then the wood glue will be there as like a backup. So yeah, a multifaceted, not very scientific or anything, but it worked.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Good. All right. Well, that wraps up our first half of the event. Feel free to stick around, engage with the makers and fellow community, and we'll see you next time.